Drill 7 is a breaststroke timing drill in order of hips, heels, catch, head. Timing on breaststroke is essential. The kick must drive backwards when the front of the body is almost streamlined. This generates as much forward momentum from the kick as possible. To achieve this effect, the timing starts as the hips recover to the surface. Then the heels recover up to the same line, and at this point, the start of the catch and the skull should generate the recovery of the head to breathe. The head should not lift before the hands separate.
Hip flexor smash. During the setup, the foam roller is positioned off-center. This will allow the foam roller to move freely and unobstructed. The foam roller is positioned at the top portion towards the front of the hip. A bony prominence at the front of the hip can be felt. This is called the anterior superior iliac spine and can be used as a point of reference for where to position the foam roller. The movement is performed with a long sweeping motion. This is done along the front of the hip and thigh. If there is a greater emphasis required for the inside or outside of the hip and thigh, the swimmer can turn the foot in or out respectively to target these areas. IT band and TFL smash. The foam roller is placed along the long bony prominence on the outside of the hip. The swimmer takes their weight onto their arms and the upper supporting leg with the foot placed on the floor. The swimmer can then push along the foam roller, kneading into the deep fascia of the IT band and the belly of the TFL, which can be found at the top of the outside of the hip.
Suicide chair is streamlined. The trailing leg is raised to the rear with the lower leg resting against the bench. The knee of the trailing leg is placed directly alongside the bench. The leading leg steps through to the outside of the hand on the same side. To increase the intensity of the stretch, the swimmer raises the trunk upright with arms being placed overhead into streamline. Downward dog pose. Begin in a spinal neutral presser position, hands directly under the shoulders, weight pushing slightly back through the heels. Leading with the hips as high as possible, the swimmer must attempt to push the chest towards the thighs. It is useful to visualize pushing through the floor, as this will help to fully activate the shoulder girdle and take the thoracic spine through full range. Heels must be towards the floor.
Side line oblique leg raise, with the swimmer on their side, hips in a pelvic neutral position, spine in neutral, head looking forward. The upper leg is positioned slightly in front, the foot is twisted towards the ground. Leading with the heel, the swimmer takes the leg at an angle as high as possible without compromising the pelvic neutral position. Split squat, with the swimmer beginning in a standing position, feet under hips, knees slightly bent and the hips tucked into a pelvic neutral position. The swimmer then steps forward, ensuring that the feet remain hip width apart and do not cross over. The swimmer must then squat down, ensuring that the knee does not pass over the toes of the leading leg. The trailing leg, the knee must be placed slightly behind the hip. During this movement, the swimmer should maintain an upright, neutral spine. This is a drill that can be used to reinforce the bottom position of the split squat or lunge. The swimmer begins in a kneeling position, knees directly under hips. The swimmer steps through with one leg, ensuring the foot of that leading leg is placed directly under the knee. The knee of the trailing leg is positioned slightly behind the hip. The swimmer then raises a couple of inches from the ground. Monster walk. With the swimmer in a standing position, feet facing forward and under hips, knees slightly bent, hips tucked into a pelvic neutral position, shoulders and hips stacked in line. As the swimmer moves sideways, the weight of the swimmer should be distributed into the heels and the outside of the foot. The hips and shoulders should remain parallel to the floor, and you should see no upward or downward rotation of the hips and shoulders. This should be maintained throughout the movement. Serratus press from elbows. With elbows directly under shoulders, hips tucked into a pelvic neutral position, legs straight pushing back through the heels, feet hip width apart. While maintaining a neutral spine, the swimmer lowers the trunk towards the floor, ensuring the shoulders are set back and down. The swimmer then reverses this movement by pressing up towards the ceiling.